whenever she is ready.
Okay.
I'm good.
Okay, perfect. Good morning. My name is Sophia D, and I will be discussing the dilemma of cochlear implants within the deaf community. Cochlear implants are a prosthetic that bypass the area of the ear that do not allow for an individual to hear, and through magnets, and electrical stimulation, they allow a deaf individual to gain profound amounts of hearing back. This piece of technology, invented in 1961 by an American otologist, gives audibly disabled individuals the chance to gain significant amounts of their hearing back, though it should be mentioned that this is not a cure to deafness, it is merely an aid to the deaf individual. Despite this, only 183,100 cochlear implants have been implanted since 1961 in the United States. Throughout my evaluation of the stimulus material, I noticed a trend of conformity versus nonconformity in social groups. This stimulus really highlighted the impact that our peers and parents have on how we act and even the decisions we make. And with even further evaluation, I noticed this trend within the deaf community. Cochlear implants have sparked major controversy, as deaf culturalists feel as if cochlear implants are leading to the decimation of deaf culture. Because of these consistent trends, I propose the question: to what extent do cochlear implants within the deaf community influence the exclusion of other deaf individuals in the United States? Based on the graph above on the stimulus material, it can be drawn that peers and parents have a significant impact on the decisions we make, though peers have the greatest impact at 38% conformity. These decisions can range from something seemingly insignificant to something as significant and life-changing as getting a cochlear implant. Through social media and cyberbullying, deaf individuals with cochlear implants have been excluded from the deaf community as a result of obtaining a cochlear implant. The information above declares that the comments made by others are affecting. The information above declares that the comments of those individuals trying to dissuade others from getting a cochlear implant within the deaf community are making an impact on their decision. In the quote above, Marley Martin, a deaf American actress, accurately describes her perspective on cochlear implants. Much like her statement, the decision is for the individual to make themselves and should not be dictated by the thoughts and comments of others. To resolve the controversy surrounding cochlear implants, I propose two possible solutions, the first being the ban of cochlear implants. Cochlear implants have sparked so much controversy that it is tearing apart deaf culture. Because of this, I propose the ban of all cochlear implants. This solution is not the most plausible and it is too radical, because it is too radical. As I've mentioned throughout, the decision to get a cochlear implant should be up to the individual themselves. It should not be dictated through the thoughts of other people or someone else. This solution would preserve deaf culture, this solution would preserve deaf culture as it would make the community isolated from the hearing community, but the benefits of getting a cochlear implant outweigh that of banning all cochlear implants. Because of this, I propose my second solution, which is the greater implementation of American Sign Language in our schools and therefore overall American society. With nearly 24,000 public schools in the United States, it would make sense to believe that other forms of English or American Sign Language would be taught more widespread. However, only about 1,000 American Sign Language courses are offered, though there are some online courses that can be taken. The ones taught in public schools, there is only 1,000. The increased use of American Sign Language would combat the issue of losing deaf culture, as it would preserve one of the key factors of deaf culture, their language. The use starts at the school level, as it would reach the greatest amount of people while still preserving its importance to the deaf community. Much like the research conducted at the Department of Psychology and Neuroscience at the University of North Carolina, some of the largest influences in our life are our peers. Every teacher whom can be considered a peer is different, but most still have a significant impact on our life, whether we choose to recognize it or not. Through their instruction and education of both the hearing community and the deaf community, it would help to end the arguments of conformity to either community. The fastest way to end the discrimination within the deaf community with regards to cochlear implant is to use and offer greater American Sign Language courses to the generations of the future. The implementation would resolve the issue of declining deaf culture, as this would preserve their language while still allowing for individuals to have more flexibility in regards to getting a cochlear implant. This will leave it up to the individual themselves to choose whether to get a cochlear implant or to not get a cochlear implant without having to conform to either the hearing community or the deaf community. Though this solution is the most plausible, there are still some limitations that should be considered when considering the implementation of this solution. As seen in the graph above, the United States is facing a significant educator shortage due to various reasons. Projections of the possible end to this shortage show that there will not be a change until something changes within the education sector. With the declining number of teachers and the already slim number of American Sign Language teachers, the proposed solution is struggling with the implementation. However, if change was to occur within the education sector, there would most likely be an influx of teachers and therefore an influx of American Sign Language teachers with more recognition, and therefore causing a greater amount of American Sign Language courses to be offered, then causing an overall increase in American Sign Language in the United States. The decision as impactful as the decision to get a cochlear implant should be up to the individual themselves without any peer influence. By the greater implementation of American Sign Language in American culture, in American society, an individual will have greater flexibility in their decision to get a cochlear implant, as they will not have to conform to either hearing society or the deaf community. They will be able to flow freely between the two without any repercussions. Thank you. This is my works cited.
All right. For your oral defense questions, you are going to get 2.
Okay.
So my first question is, what evidence did you gather that you didn't include, and why did you choose not to include it?
So there is this university in Washington, D.C., and it's a historically deaf college. So I use that as one of the perspectives to kind of show that there are places where American Sign Language is used and it's normalized, and how kind of their society flows there. And I didn't choose to include that because I had the perspective from Marley Martin, and I kind of felt like that also helped to get my point across.
What are the implications of your findings to your community?
Can you repeat the question?
What are the implications of your findings to your community?
So, I mean, for this community in general, it's kind of, it's hard to enforce you have to take an American Sign Language courses, because much like any other language courses, you can't really enforce that, and enforcing that in general would just be a bit difficult, especially in this community, though it should be kind of a requirement to graduate that you have to take some sort of language.
All righty, way to go.
Okay.
Give that girl a round of applause. You turn off the camera.